Greetings, and welcome to my channel. I'm the Anunnaki Theorist. I know it's been a while since I made a video, and I know I didn't have a termination video after my last video, which was the not-so-virgin birth. But I did mention on my Facebook page that I was pretty much done. I originally started my channel because I felt a compulsion to tell somebody, you know, the epiphanies that I was having, the knowledge that I was gaining, and to share my belief. That compulsion had started to dwindle, and then it was finally gone. And in fact, making my last video, it almost felt like a chore. But getting back to my Facebook page, I did say on my Facebook page that, you know, I was done, but if something relevant came up, that I would make another video and get the information out there. Well, something has come up, and it's relevant, and it might happen. Okay, so in the last few days, there's been some buzz around something that happened, well, a good long while ago, and that what had actually happened a long time ago wasn't seen as relevant. It was actually kind of disregarded because it just sounded so absurd. The thing is, though, is a lot of things have taken place since then, and now it's being talked about, especially seeing as how, well, I'm recording this on November 30th, 2024. Something could happen. I'm not saying it's going to, but something could happen in 3 days. December 3rd, 2024. Okay, so what is this? What is this thing that could happen? Back in 1997, an individual known as Cliff High, H-I-G-H, High, he created this thing known as the Webbot. Now, originally Webbot was, well, it's essentially first generation artificial intelligence, although not quite. Basically, it tracked keywords that were entered into the internet, and then it could make predictions for the stock market. That's what this thing was originally created for, and it used a protocol called ALTA, Asymmetric Language Trend Analysis. The interesting thing is, a more evolved version of this is actually what we find in Google searches. Because you type something in that you're going to search for, and guess what happens? Every place else that uses HTML5 will now give you an ad that is related to what you searched for. So you can thank Mr. High Hero on that. But anyway, he created it in 1997 to predict stock market trends. When he seen that it was doing a very good job predicting stock market trends, he wanted to see what else it could do. So he unleashed it on the internet. And it came back with some interesting predictions. The Northeast blackout of 2003, I've talked about that in my in some of my videos, where the entire Northeast was all blacked out because of something that happened to one of the power stations there on the U.S.-Canadian border. The 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake, which killed a lot of people. And then Hurricane Katrina and its devastation. These were hits that they can claim that Webbot actually predicted. Now, just like with anything that predicts profits, fortune telling, anything like that, you're going to have your misses. I mean, Edgar Cayce had quite a few misses. Nostradamus had quite a few misses. And I'm quite sure that even like the biblical prophets and things like that, they've had their misses too. But Webbot, yeah, the big December 12th, 2012 world was going to end, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that didn't happen. And I've talked about this in my videos as well, where Zecharia Sitchin did the calculations, and he said that mainstream academia, they were the ones that actually took the Mayan calendar and the Mayan prophecy, and they said that the end of the 13th back tune was supposed to be December 21st, 2012. Well, Mr. Sitchin calculated it the way the Mayans believed it. And 2012 was not it. 2068. According to how the Mayans viewed their calendar and their prophecy, 2068 is supposed to be the end of the 13th back tune. So that would be the reason why Webbot made that miss. Because the trend was December 21st, 2012. Several other misses, and then of course the prediction that the US dollar would completely collapse in 2011. Well, the US dollar didn't completely collapse, but Mr. High said that Webbot actually predicted that there would be a digital currency. Didn't call it Bitcoin, but it did predict that there would be a digital currency. Now, of course, that digital currency was supposed to completely replace the US dollar. That didn't happen. And then, of course, Israel would bomb Iran during Barack Obama's administration. That didn't happen, but look at what's going on in the world today. Iran is essentially fighting a proxy war with Israel through Hamas and Hezbollah. So the misses are there, but technically they could be interpreted as they were just kind of wrong in the dates and wrong on exactly how things were going on. And that's going to be somewhat relevant here in just a little bit. I'll explain. Okay, so now I watched a few videos on YouTube where you had various content creators that were sitting there saying, "Oh, this is all over the internet. This is all over YouTube." No, it's not. It is not. There's actually only a few YouTube videos out there. And as far as I can tell, it's not all over the internet. But what this is, and this is Cliff High, and this is his actual channel. Okay, So he's talking about WebBot, and he's talking about what it did. When it came up with this prediction, and this prediction says that there will be an aerial battle between UFOs and UFOs along with terrestrial aircraft, in other words, human-made aircraft. A celestial battle. Now, when I first heard this, I was like, holy crap! We're going to have a recreation of the Nuremberg celestial battle? Now this is a print from a woodcut that, you know, I mean, this is 1561. You know, we don't have, you know, the digital CGI and everything like that we would have today. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have video cameras and things like that they could actually take pictures of. So this is the best that the artist that was listening to all these reports, because the whole entire city seen this. They basically walked out their door and they seen all these orbs of light and these crosses and these long cylindrical objects and these two huge blade-like looking things that would basically just block out the sun. And they were all swirling around and shooting each other. This is 1561. There isn't an aircraft in the sky. The skies belong to the birds as much as these people knew. But here we have an actual space battle, well, not space, but aerial battle with things that could only be described as spheres, crosses, cylindrical objects, blade-like objects, and this all culminated, it all stopped as soon as this huge black triangular ship came into the battlefield. Now, those individuals that are in the UFO community, they know about this. So, WebBot predicted this. Now, it said that Cliff High had set this algorithm up that said that a prediction wouldn't happen unless what he called a temporal marker took place. If the temporal marker didn't take place, then this event would not take place. Thing is, the temporal marker has taken place. And he said that 39 days after the temporal marker takes place, then this event, this celestial battle, will happen. Now, of course, this is a prediction. This is coming from essentially a first generation artificial intelligence. It could be wrong. But if it's right, well, we'll get into that here in a minute. So what is the temporal marker? Now, keep in mind, this is 2009. Okay? Some of the things that we know today, it wasn't even considered back then. Okay? So the temporal marker stated that when Joe Rogan interviewed Donald Trump, now, it didn't say president or president-elect or former president. It just said Donald Trump. So remember, 2009. In 2009, Donald Trump was a real estate mogul, a Democrat, and the host and star of The Apprentice. You're fired. That's all he was. Now, Joe Rogan, and honestly, I only ever knew Joe Rogan from one thing, and that was Fear Factor. He was the host of Fear Factor. But he was also a fighter in the UFC. Now, we have to remember, this is 2009. UFC was nowhere near as big or well known as what it is today. So he was a fighter in the UFC, and he was an announcer. He had just started his independent broadcast. They didn't even call it a podcast back then. Podcast was a descriptor. It described what it was. It was an independent broadcast that didn't go through any syndicated or news agency or, you know, any form of the normal media avenues. Independent broadcast. And he had just started it. And it was just him and a bunch of guys sitting around in a lounge talking on a microphone. But now you have the Joe Rogan Experience. It's huge. And getting an interview with Joe Rogan is a big deal. I mean, let's look at it this way. Joe invited Kamala Harris onto his show. But she would have had to go to Texas, which is where his show is at. She didn't want to do that. And she said she would only do an hour interview. Yeah, anybody that's watched the Joe Rogan Experience knows that it is longer than an hour. But Donald Trump, yeah, he went to Texas. He went on the Joe Rogan Experience, and it lasted 3 hours. This video that I'm showing right here, this is the full 3-hour-long video of Donald Trump and Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan Experience. Now, "39 days after the interview of Joe Rogan with Donald Trump is when this celestial battle is supposed to take place. And it's been calculated December 3rd, 2024. It's only a few days away, folks. So what is this? Well, I didn't talk about it in any of my videos, primarily because it's kind of a sticky topic. But I did mention it on my old Facebook page. There's a prophecy, and it's not WebBot. This is, it's actually a Judeo-Christian prophecy. Talking about the Antichrist. And the Antichrist is supposed to perform quote-unquote miracles. He's supposed to do some pretty interesting things. One is he's supposed to bring peace to the Middle East. He's supposed to bring peace to the world, or for the most part of it. everything is supposed to culminate in two things. And of course, if you go and you look up, how can you tell the Antichrist? What are the characteristics of the Antichrist? Well, the two last parts of the prophecy are two of the characteristics. And the last one just came true. Now, the first part of that particular area of the prophecy states that the Antichrist will go into the third temple and he will sit on the throne and he will proclaim himself. It's debatable is what it actually says. It's either he proclaims himself as God or he proclaims himself as Jesus reborn. Now, I've talked about this in my other videos. I've talked about the whole idea that, I didn't believe that the third temple was going to be rebuilt. And then, of course, they've got the red heifer prophecy. And the red heifers are in Israel. They haven't sacrificed them yet. We're still waiting on that. The Dome of the Rock hasn't been torn down. And, of course, they haven't started the construction on the third temple. I don't know if they're going to get the chance to. But if we look at it through modern day eyes, and we see it not as a temple of religion, but a temple of nationality, then we have seen something happen. Tel Aviv is the capital of Israel. But it never should have been. The capital of Israel should have been Jerusalem. And there is a way for it to be recognized as the capital of Israel. If the U.S. Embassy is moved from Tel Aviv to Israel, which has been done. The other thing, the whole idea of sitting on the throne and proclaiming himself Jesus reborn, I don't know exactly who it was that did it. I don't know if he did it himself, or if the media did it, or if it was done by Netanyahu and the Israelis. But someone called him, and I think they were doing it in jest, but they called him King of the Jews. What was Jesus known as? Now, the final part of the prophecy. The final part, the final characteristic that you know that you're dealing with the Antichrist. The Antichrist will claim that he has died and been resurrected. Now, looking at that through modern day eyes and through rational thought, I don't think that's a physical death. I think it's a political one. He is already ruled. And then he died. And now he has been resurrected. Politically. Now, one of the things we have to understand it is a misunderstanding as to what the Antichrist is. The Antichrist isn't anti-Jesus Christ. He isn't anti-Christianity. He is anti what Christianity has become. Remember, in my previous videos, I said that Marduk has usurped all of the religions. Oh, almost all. I don't think he actually touched Buddhism and Hinduism. But I used to think that, the only one that he hadn't touched was Islam. But Islam has two denominations. Now, I can never remember which is which. But you have the Sunni and you have the Shia. Now, one of them is all about peace. Allah is a God of peace. Even with your enemies, you're supposed to be peaceful. But the other one is the radical militant arm of Islam. And they're the ones that take Allah's teachings and they exaggerate them and they bring them out to the extreme. This is the side that says that if they don't believe in Allah, they are an infidel and they deserve death. These are the ones that were corrupted by Marduk. Marduk is the one that always wants to be the only one worshipped. So the Antichrist is misunderstood. Is not the son of Satan. That would be Nabu. And I don't think Trump is an incarnation of Nabu. I could be wrong. That could be his newest incarnation. Now, I never went into the incarnations of Nabu. At least not officially. I did talk about Akhenaten. And I think I got into Alexander the Great. But then you have Constantine. You have George Washington. And so maybe Trump? Maybe? I mean, it's possible. Okay, so this celestial battle, honestly, I think they know it's coming. In my Revelation video, at the very beginning, I've got that little clip of a radio broadcast where the hosts are talking with essentially a whistleblower, somebody who is in the Pentagon, and they talk about, that they are preparing for the return of the Sumerian gods. So I think they already know. And then we've got this going on. The whole UAP issue. Unidentified anomalous phenomenon. That's the new thing that the UFO has become. But this all comes about because of soft disclosure. They're not going to come right out and say, yes, we've been in contact with them for decades, blah, blah, blah. They're not going to come right out and say that. So they've got to have somebody who is in the know that brings essentially allegations to Congress, to an oversight committee. And of course, yes, somebody is going to get in trouble, but it's not going to be like the entire government is going to be shamed. But I think they already know this is coming. So, what is this celestial battle then? Well, I believe this is an advanced unit that is, now these are not Anunnaki. I'll get to that here in a minute, but they are basically making preparations. They're making sure that the landing sites are prepared in a terrestrial military situation. You'll send in a few squads to reconnoiter the area to make sure that there is, no enemy booby traps, to make sure that there's no enemy snipers, things like that. They'll make sure that the area where they're going to set up a beachhead or a forward base is clear and ready. That's what this is. So you're going to have Marduk, who's going to be the one behind the terrestrial aircraft. And it's not just going to be one country, it's probably going to be several. It's going to be a joint operation. So you're going to have MiGs, and you're going to have F-22s, and you're going to have whatever. I'm not a big aircraft fan, so I don't really know what all of them. But you're going to have aircraft from many countries that are going to meet. And they're going to meet up with other UFOs. Now, I've already discussed that it's my belief that Marduk has an alliance with the Greys. And possibly other extraterrestrials, reptilian. So, these will be the ships that meet up and fight alongside the terrestrial aircraft. And they will be fighting this advanced unit that's just coming in to make sure that the landing field is fine. That's how I see this celestial battle. Okay, we are leading up to the return. Now, I have tried my damnedest to keep from giving a date. I feel that it's very unwise to do so. Whenever anybody wants to bring up the date on something, I've said, don't be another William Miller. Look him up. He's one that claims that he'd calculated the return of Jesus. This is back in the 1800s. So, I don't want to be another William Miller. But I have always figured that the return was going to happen on a solstice, or close to a solstice, usually probably after a solstice. And the reason why is because our primitive ancestors were fascinated, obsessed with the idea of tracking the solstice. Now, it's usually the summer solstice, but can also be the winter solstice as well. And, mainstream academia and anthropologists and things like that, they'll say, well, the reason why they did that is so that they would know what time of the year is, so that they could know when it was going to be time for harvest and yada, 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 okay, all this stuff. Okay, if that's the case, now they no longer exist, unfortunately. Although I can see now why they actually did what they did. Anyway, the Georgia Guidestones. R.C. Christensen, which wasn't his actual name, commissioned the rock quarry / stone masons company there in Elberton, Georgia. Commissioned them to make these huge monolithic stone slabs that was going to have writing on them, and these things were written in the 8 most used languages of the world, and they were essentially 10 suggestions. Now, there's a lot of people that said, this was the Illuminati 10 Commandments, and it's primarily because of the first suggestion. The first suggestion says, maintain a global population of no more than 500 million to ensure the balance with nature. Now, for me, the Georgia Guidestones was always supposed to be, somebody knew that there was a cataclysm coming. That humanity was going to have to rebuild itself. And if they could stumble upon this, you get a whole Mad Max situation, and they stumble upon this, and they could read one of these languages because one of these languages survived in at least some form. So they could read this and they could rebuild civilization without making the mistakes that we did. Unfortunately, it was found out that R.C. Christensen was actually, he was a doctor, but he was a Nazi sympathizer. So this wouldn't have been the Illuminati 10 Commandments. This would have been the Nazi 10 Commandments. But anyway, I digress. In the center of this formation, there was a pillar of stone, and there was what was called the mail slot. The mail slot, on the summer solstice, the sun would actually shine through, basically creating a beam of light, a ray of light, basically the sun ray, but it would go through that mail slot, and of course you'd get the beam. But that was on the summer solstice. So I was thinking that it would have been the summer solstice. But then I also got to thinking, and I didn't get into a video talking about what I believe the conditions of Nibiru were, but we kind of get that idea, and I talked about it when I talked about Enlil being Yahweh, walked in the garden in the cool of the day, because it's colder on Nibiru than it is here on Earth. If they were to arrive during the summer solstice, they'd be burning up and be uncomfortable. They're getting ready for war, and they're uncomfortable because it's too blasted hot. But if they arrived during the winter solstice, or after the winter solstice, when it was cooler, might even be cold, they would be comfortable. So you have Marduk will have his allies. The ones that they'll be fighting, they're not, like I said, they're not the Anunnaki. They're the Anunnaki's allies. And technically, they've been with us longer than the Anunnaki have. The Galactic Federation of Light. A theory that suggests a federation of beings protects Earth and humanity from dark forces. I've talked about this. Where Gene Roddenberry, creator of Star Trek, used to sit in on channeled sessions talking with members of the Galactic Federation of Light. But these are the allies of the Anunnaki. And of course, founded over 4 million years ago, and to have more than 200,000 member star systems. Well, star nations. So, yeah. Okay. Uh, Supposed to be located near Sirius. Well, from some of the things that I've seen, and these are coming from channeled conversations, and everybody that knows me knows what I feel about channelers. But from some of the channeled information, the founders of the Galactic Federation of Light are actually the Arcturians from the star Arcturus, not Sirius. The Arcturians are supposed to be the most advanced, technological, and just cultural, spiritual, the most evolved species in our galaxy. I mean, if anyone could be considered God, I would think that it would probably be one of the Arcturians. I know there are a lot out there that say that the Lyrans or the Orions or the Pleiadians, that, you know, these are technically the god that, but I think the Arcturians would actually fit it better. Anywho, so the Galactic Federation of Light, that's the Anunnaki's allies, but these ships that'll come down, they are actually the Ashtar Galactic Command. Now, this is part of the Galactic Federation of Light. This is the militant arm of the Galactic Federation of Light. This is actually where Roddenberry got the idea for Starfleet. But the Ashtar Galactic Command. Now, it's believed to have been a hoax. But back in 1977, and I've talked about this, back in 1977, a BBC broadcast was interrupted in southern England, and you got this message. The screen, you know, it was all fuzzy and static and everything like that. There was no picture, but you heard this voice come over the TV, or the telly, as our neighbors across the pond say. And it says, "This is the voice of Rillan, a representative of the Ashtar Galactic Command." Now, supposedly, these individuals have been safeguarding the Earth, according to channeled information. Now, it's a rumor and it's a conspiracy theory that President Dwight D. Eisenhower made an alliance, made a treaty with the Zetas, also known as the Greys, in exchange for, well, to them was primitive technology, but to us, advanced our technology 1,000-fold. We wouldn't have the technology today if it wasn't for what Eisenhower allegedly did for us. But in exchange for the Greys to be able to abduct some of our people and do experiments on, Eisenhower was given 2, maybe more, but 2 definite pieces of technology. The transistor and the integrated circuit. Without these 2 things, our society would not be where it is today. Our technology would not be where it is today. And supposedly these were given to us by the Greys. Now, the Ashtar Command They knew that the Greys had this permission. So for the most part, they left them alone. But supposedly the Greys broke the treaty. They started abducting more humans than what they were supposed to. And so the Ashtar Galactic Command stepped in and said, as long as you keep to your treaty with the humans, we're not going to mess with you. But you're not going to be doing that. You're not going to be doing a full-blown invasion. Nothing. And they were going to stop it. Okay, so we come down here, and this is the dire warning that they were giving us. All your weapons of evil must be destroyed. Now we're having, well, we're as closest as we've ever been to midnight on the doomsday clock when it comes to nuclear war. I mean, this is one of the things that Putin has said. He has put nuclear arms on the table. You only have a short time to learn to live together in peace. You must live in peace or leave the galaxy. Now, I've talked about the reason why the Anunnaki are returning is because they have to deal with Marduk. The thing is, though, is we wouldn't have to worry about not living in peace with each other if it wasn't for frickin' Marduk. Marduk is the whole reason why. The whole reason why. We have warfare. In the year 363, His Majesty Ra, the Holy One, the Falcon of the Horizon, the immortal who forever lives, was in the land of Ken. He was accompanied by his warriors, for the enemies had conspired against their lord. This is the first Pyramid War. And it wasn't fought with the Anunnaki. It was fought with humans. Now there's one other reason why we have this divisiveness. And it's only been relatively recent. I'm not going to bring up a video or anything. I will tell you the individual's name is Jonathan Kahn. He has done a couple of videos that talk about the Enchantress, or that talk about the Sorceress. These are talking about Inanna. Marduk isn't the only one that's still here. Inanna is still here. And the issues that we've been dealing with for the last 5-6 years, some of the stuff that I'm glad will be coming to an end very soon. I mean, regardless of whether this celestial battle takes place or not, we will still be getting out of the ridiculousness that has plagued the West for a long time now. But Inanna is still here. And she, in my opinion, in my belief, she is the reason why all that nonsense took place. Now, I don't know if she's on the side of the kingdom and she's trying to keep Marduk from consolidating power. I mean, it's possible. I mean, she's still pissed at him. I mean, he got her lover killed. But if this celestial event takes place, if it really is going to happen, and I kind of hope it does, then it won't be too much longer after that we will see the return. And the world will change. I'm the Anunnaki theorist. Enjoy.